Hi, welcome to Bad Wolf TV. Now that's really cool, isn't it? Today, you're going to hear from the two blondes behind the community. My name is Charlene Norman. My partner here, she's Kim Scofield. She's the tech and brainy wizard behind this partnership. And I want to give you a quick glance in between her brain cells. I want to showcase her to you so that you can see the wisdom and the brilliance that she has and that she brings to the community. We're going to try and do this in 20 minutes or less. So I'm going to limit my questions to her to 6. Are we ready, Kim?
We're ready.
Let's go. My first question. I have to admit, I am never, ever impressed with people's education. However, yours is a bit different from the normal tech run that I have seen. You have a bachelor in computer science and a master's in artificial intelligence and linguistics. So why on earth would a tech geek seek out higher learning in linguistics?
Well, it's an interesting question. And when I look back at how I got there, originally I started out with an intense interest in English literature. So I have a lot of education in English literature and interpretation and what literature says to people, what it says about people to people, and how we learn lessons from it. And from there, and then I went into science. So I got my Bachelor of Science in Computer Science, kept going with the literature on the side as well. And when I went to get my master's in artificial intelligence, we added cognitive linguistics in there as that bridge. So my interest in technology was in creating technology that could bridge from the technology to the human being. And literally that is linguistics. That's how we talk, how we communicate, how we have as a human race or as a particular segment of the human race, how we have got, our language has moved and evolved. AI needs to evolve. So when you create an AI program, it needs to start somewhere with some kind of a linguistic base, and then it needs to evolve. And then if we have it evolve in the same way that the human beings are evolving and using language in the same way that human beings are using language, that communication gets better. So we can then bridge from what as a human being you would like to get from your computer when you ask it a question or you use a program. What are you actually asking it? What would you like it to give you? And then the computer can then give you that answer. And when it does that, is it giving you the answer you're really looking for? Is that what you wanted? And so bridging that communication gap was what I was really interested in.
And actually, I find that very impressive because anybody involved in trying to get their messages across, it's always a bridge from the technical piece of what you're talking about to the ears and the understanding of the end user. So I found that very interesting. And in my experience, a lot of tech people just, they don't do any bridging, if you will. It takes a while before they learn how to do it effectively. My second question, let me just rant a little bit. When I talk about the world of technology, I call myself a road warrior when it comes to tech and implementations, mainly because I've been on the user side since the early 80s. The early 80s was when the first desktop computer was introduced. Bill Gates started his run. I saw what happened when the first computers came into business. I saw how companies salivated at all the productivity improvements / profitability increases that they would get. And they used all this new tech. Hell, I was even one of the first who signed the death warrants for people way back when. Because in those days, and to a large extent today, it's everything to do with people. Bring in the computers, go out with the people. Bring in all the computers to replace all the people. Bring in all the robots, replace all the people. And I've lost count of the number of tech projects and systems that I have led. Everything from a few $1,000s to over $20 million. And the bottom line was most were not overly successful, most were over budget, and none were implemented on time without an 80 to 100-hour week effort by my own team of non-tech. So forgive me when I say anything tech is really just a crapshoot. It might solve the problem we have, but it will definitely bring you more trouble than you ever imagined. So, dear partner, what is your opinion?
My opinion is, well, that you're not wrong. Opinions are never wrong. Your experience is not unique. And I would say that your experience is mirrored on both sides. So as much as the person, the consumer of the technology is frustrated by this process, I think you will find that the tech department on the other end is frustrated by this process as well. And bringing those two things together is what smooths things out. So I think that when we start a project, if you have your tech department and you're talking and your C-suite and your company is talking to them about a solution, we need to look at three different solutions. One is the dream solution. What in your wildest dreams do you really want this technology to do? The next solution is, what do you actually need it to do? And the third solution is, what can it actually do? Of all of these things you want, what is the workable solution that we can bring out of that? Because we see a lot of fancy technology out there, we see a lot of opportunities and platforms and wonderful things that can be done. We also assume that they're easy to just put into a specific box for our company, and that's not always true. So as much as it's hard to bridge that gap again and find out what you really need out of the dreams that you have, what do you really need? And then what can we actually make happen for you? It's as much of an art as it is a science for both sides. And so I think improving that communication is the way to reduce frustration, and right from the beginning, having those three solutions. So here's what I hear you saying your dream solution is. Here's what I hear you saying you really need. And here's what I think we can do that can get you most of the way there. And here's what it'll cost. And here's how many man hours it will take. Here's the training that your people will need, the time I will need to spend with your staff to make sure that we are implementing this appropriately. And if we remember the people component and we allow the technology department to spend that time getting to know the people that will use the technology, understanding how they will use it, understanding how they need it presented to them, understanding how to bring them on board and bring it up to speed, I think that's where we can reduce a lot of that frustration. And that's where you get to reality really quickly. Even that solution that says, here's the one we can create for you, it may not work for your company if you maybe don't have the budget to train everybody, or you don't have people that really want, they have to come up too many levels in technology to be able to understand how to use it. So you need to find something that's a people solution as well as a technology solution. And be nice to your techies, because it is just as much an art as it is a science, and we need to do in the same way. Yeah, be nice to the corporate side that's trying to bring their needs to us, and the technology people that are trying to then understand them and bring the solutions back. And then in the middle is that bridge, and really comes down to people. We need to be able to spend time with the people who use it, time with the people who implement it, and time needs to be spent on training people and onboarding them. So it's getting down to having that relationship so that really both sides start talking the same language. So when you tell me you would like something, I actually understand. I would like a spreadsheet that does this, is different than, hey, can you make me these fancy dashboards? What do you really need? I need a spreadsheet that does this, and I need to see the results here. That gives me more options to bring you what you want. Does that kind of make sense?
It does make sense. And to be fair, we users often don't know what we want. We have an idea. We have an idea, but we don't articulate it very well. So I will say we are just as much to blame as the tech side is. So
it's communication.
It is communication. You're right. So tell me about artificial intelligence. A lot of humans are worried. should they be worried? What is artificial intelligence, first off? And should humans really be worried about their future?
Well, that's a very big question. So to simplify it a bit and give you some very simplified answers and abbreviated answers to a very really large program or very large question. Artificial intelligence, the meaning has changed over the years. So if you're looking at programs out there that say they're artificial intelligence, it could mean something different than an academic artificial intelligence program that is working on extrapolating algorithms and giving it that black box ability to kind of change the parameters and then actually extrapolate and find solutions that perhaps as human beings we couldn't find. The mainstream definition of artificial intelligence is becoming a little closer to machine learning or data, just other forms of data, which it's just important to know. So artificial intelligence itself works on information, and it can only do its job with information. So as we use more artificial intelligence in our systems or any kind of machine learning and analysis, we are going to have to allow the system access to more and more information if we want accurate results, which would be the point of using it. So I think as human beings, we just need to understand that AI and all of these other data analysis techniques, they bring us convenience. They perhaps bring us faster answers, and sometimes we really need those faster answers. And sometimes perhaps it's just convenience. And as we allow AI into our lives more and more, we just need to understand that we are giving up, that giving privacy will kind of go along with that because it works on data. And if you don't give it the data, it doesn't work. So that's my kind of simplified short version is AI works on data. The more we bring it into our lives, the more we will have to give it access to data if we want it to actually work. And we just need to be aware of that.
That's actually fascinating. I want to bring up COVID for a minute. I think all the experts who have been behind disease and immunologists, I hope I pronounced that properly, those experts have been warning for decades that we would experience a global pandemic. The only thing they couldn't put on that warning was when it was going to happen. And most of us citizens, well, frankly, we don't pay attention to the experts thinking and saying that it will happen one day. We want to know concrete. So we never thought it would happen in our lifetime. But last year it did, and it has. So you as an expert, Kim, in the tech world today, what do you see as being the biggest risk the world faces?
The biggest risk from a tech perspective?
Yep.
I would think that the biggest risk that, again, in a very simplified way, the biggest risk that we would face is a loss of control over our own data, so a lack of autonomy. And that, I think, will come from a lack of education about where our data is and how it's being used and any rights and options that we have in that process. So that would be my thought, that that's one of the biggest threats facing people, like the people in the world, is that loss of connection to where your data is going and where it's being used. And so that loss of autonomy, maybe.
So then what are the repercussions if that is not addressed? What are the repercussions if we don't face that?
Well, the natural path that will take is that if we put data into a system, and like we said, any system needs data in order to work. So if our data is going into, say, a health system or a power grid system, user information, then the services we're getting back are coming from the analysis of that data. So if we take a power grid, for instance, then the data is going in about our usage and our locations, things like that. And then the solutions coming back for how to distribute power across that power grid are coming back from the data that was used. So once we get into that cycle and we start that wheel, it's hard to reverse that or stop that wheel from turning. So once we move forward with technology solutions, backing out of them is harder. And I think we just need to be really careful as we move forward that as citizens, as just human beings, we take that advocacy on ourselves. So that self-advocacy of educating ourselves, much like you would educate yourself about your financial information. You know, you check your bank, we've got Equifax, we check our bank accounts if we bank online. We understand where our financial data is, for the most part. We need to take that same kind of approach and that self-advocacy approach with our data. We need to know where our data is and how it's being used and what rights we do or don't have, or what say we have or don't have in where it's being used.
So let me ask you then, what would you propose to help the average Joe, the average business person, the average entrepreneur, the average C-suite leader? What would you propose would be a reasonable thing for them to go and seek out this information? How would you educate them? What is out there now?
Well, just as a regular human being, if I wanted to go and find out where my data was and what was happening and what I could do about it, I actually I don't know. You can go and look, and like we all do, you can Google it, and of course in a very simplified way, or simplified answer. But the only answer I have is I really don't know. There's no centralized way. There's no pathway from A to Z to figure all of that out. So that's a lot of what we're addressing in the Bad Wolf community, is to create that that opportunity and that environment so that we can, it is a personal journey. If you use things like TikTok or you use Facebook, then there are things you can look at. If you use online banking, then there are things you should look at. So it all depends on what you use in life, how you use it, and, you know, where your technology's at. And so in the Bad Wolf community, what we're trying to create is that community that comes together so we can have discussions, we can have information sessions, and we can create those guideposts. So as you go along, you can look at the guideposts and you can check off from, you can create your own list, and we will have information, experts, things to help you along that path. But that's the path to advocacy, really, is knowing what you're using, knowing where that information is going because you're using those particular parts of technology, and being educated on the big picture of what's happening in the internet in general. So you know where your data is being stored, what countries or jurisdictions it's going through on the way, what the laws are as it does that. And you know, where your compliance lies, especially if you're a business, where your legal compliance lies, and where you might have any gaps that you have to fill.
Wow. I don't think any of us actually understood the huge ramifications that you've shared today. Thank you, Kim. So there you have it. 20 minutes of Bad Wolf TV with my brilliant partner. We as consumers and as business people need to understand how to protect ourselves, our families, and our businesses. And if you'd like to learn more about how to power up and protect your position, may I suggest you visit badwolfcommunity.com. Until we chat again.
Bye, everybody.